I want to recognize New Energy Economy for everything they do for our community. We are so lucky to have people like them in our community. It is so important to have people who are advocates and watchdogs.
What I love about New Energy Economy is that we are not afraid to look at what's so wrong in the world, right? And there's a lot wrong. And there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of violence. And in the energy sector, really our energy economy is based on violence. And it can be overwhelming to really try to face that. But we're not afraid to dig right in, you know, and to go where that cutting edge of violence is taking place, whether it be coal extraction or nuclear extraction, or all this push towards gas right now. And to go not only lean into that, but to go in with courage and to fight against it. So we believe in these two strands, the two strands of the DNA, right? We call it activist DNA. And one side for us is about resistance. So it's about fighting what's wrong, and standing up for what's right, and saying no to the violence, and putting our bodies out, our minds out, you know, like for us, it's legal work, it's activist work, and saying that it has to stop. The violence has to stop. And we'll try to make that happen in whatever ways we can, with whatever resources we have.
So New Energy Economy has really been at the forefront of indigenous communities, and also fighting P&M with their different ways that they were going to rip off the consumers. We don't want no more coal. We don't want no more nuclear energy.
With the energy that is provided in the world today, everything that we have as an energy source is either alive or it's dead. It's either consuming what has been decomposed for millions of years, that's fossil fuel, that's coal, that's gas, that's uranium, that's, you know, everything that's long gone and dead. And when you really think about it, that's a dead economy. That's an economy that's thriving off of death.
My name is Daniel So, and basically now I'm an elected member of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, which is composed of 24 members. I represent 8 chapters on the very eastern edge of the Navajo Nation, as far back as 2011, seeing the initial destruction of the landscape, and then of course seeing the hundreds of semi-trucks coming into the community. One to basically bring the drilling rigs, bring the equipment, and then also then listening to the drilling rigs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no interruptions. And part of the concerns of the grandmothers was their grandkids were losing sleep, they weren't doing their homework, and even when the buses came, they had to endure lines and lines of trucks to where they were often late for school. It affects the whole community, it affects families. We posed it in the Navajo framework. The general responses was, it affects Mother Earth, it affects the sacredness of the air, because basically it's become contaminated, and it affects the sacredness of the water.
One of the things that New Energy Economy does that I think is so critical for our movement is making energy something that folks understand. And so energy is really the basis of our economy. Like, our economy right now is based on the violence of the fossil fuel industry and fossil fuel extraction. And that relationship somehow goes largely unseen by a lot of those of us who participate in it. So for instance, for those of us who live in the cities, you know, we are not on the front lines. We don't see the wounds of extraction, and it doesn't impact our bodies and our lives the way that it does for the folks on the front lines, which in New Mexico is our indigenous communities, especially our Diné communities in the northwestern part of the state. So we're blind to a lot of it. And that blindness is what allows us to perpetuate it, because if we knew what was happening, which is the case with almost all injustice, you know, we would never consent to that violence. Certainly not wanting to be guilty of inflicting that violence on others, you know? So the thing about it is that it goes unseen and it's kind of invisible because it's made to be so inaccessible, and it's so technical. People feel so intimidated by energy talk. At the same time, we all use it every day, all day, you know? So it's something that we can and should be able to relate to, but there's just so much, honestly, smoke and mirrors put between us and the reality. And so our work at New Energy Economy is about peeling back those layers of the onion and exposing what's happening so that people can be informed and we can reclaim our own agency in something that we are participating in.
The Avangrid so-called merger issue is something that probably people know a lot more about. Is this a company we can rely on? Is it trustworthy? Is it honest? Does it do things in a way that keeps its costs to a minimum while at the same time providing reliable service to the ratepayers? Very largely due to Marielle's and New Energy Economy's efforts, the information necessary to address that has been developed and put in front of the commission during these hearings. The fact that New Energy Economy is able to do this and able to play that role is due to the support that it's gotten from its principal supporters and from its grassroots supporters and from all sorts of people in all walks of life and all different stripes in the community.
Our Public Regulation Commission rejected those two companies' merger proposal, saying basically it's just not good for us, the customers.
In this case, the proposed player has a demonstrated record of poor performance that's well documented by our hearing examiner.
Those concerns include a criminal investigation to executives with Avangrid's parent company, as well as the company's service record with utilities it operates on the East Coast.
This whole deal to me kind of boils down to promises versus actual performance.
So our victory against Avangrid, Iberdrola, and the merger that PNM proposed is our largest victory to date. We defeated a $4 billion transaction by standing up together. Another victory that we are really excited about is we have helped to defeat the abandonment of the Four Corners coal plant, abandoning the responsibility to pay for the plant by offloading $300 million onto ratepayers, and abandoning the responsibility to close the plant by offloading the plant to NTEC and keeping the plant alive. This was PNM's proposal in front of the PRC. We stood up in 2015, 6 years ago. We were the only voice against PNM's reinvestment in that plant. We succeeded in winning an imprudence finding, and the PRC said that PNM should have done the evaluation that we were calling for to compare coal investment to renewables, which at the time were cheaper. The PRC said that they should have. They told them that they would not allow them to recoup those costs from ratepayers, but unfortunately, because of corruption, the PRC reversed its decision. We've been fighting that for 6 years, and finally this week, we won in front of the PRC, who said that PNM may not offload $300 million onto ratepayers' backs for a plant that will no longer serve us, and PNM cannot offload those toxic assets to NTEC to keep the plant operating for another several years.
New energy economy has played a very important part in informing and educating the commissioners and the public on the real necessity of having a public option for energy in our state. We have a tremendous amount of solar and wind and geothermal that the people of New Mexico can develop, use for themselves, and what they can produce can be sold to neighboring states and potentially neighboring countries. There is no reason why a private corporation, for-profit corporation, should be gaining these benefits.
Energy democracy, to me, like all democracies, to me it means having the full power, authority, ownership, and responsibility around energy, both needs and demands and production.
And my first experience with the new energy economy was at the Crown Point Chapter House and doing the ribbon cutting at the Crown Point Chapter House, and it was just an incredible moment. I had my daughter there, my first daughter. She was literally just a few months old, and she was in her cradle board. My mom was there, and seeing the impact that solar energy and what we consider a live energy, it's a living energy source that we're tapping into.
So today, this beautiful day, this beautiful gathering, this solarization project, I'm sure people have noticed the solar panels on the hill there that just today started, we're seeing the meter go backwards. It seems fitting that this comes during the harvest time of year, when we are invited into gratitude for the fullness of life and the abundance in our community. My heart, I have to express a few gratitudes. My heart is full of gratitude today for Mariel Nanasi, the bold and visionary director of New Energy Economy, and her team for their efforts to bring renewable energy to the people with the Soul for All initiative.
The other part of what I love about New Energy Economy is that you can't keep fighting if you don't have hope. So for us, that other strand in the DNA is so critical because it allows us to work with love at the center of what we're doing, and the idea that we can build the alternatives, that we actually have the tools, we have the vision. It's just a matter of believing in ourselves and believing that we deserve